Uh, with my background, I didn't have any paranormal experiences growing up. I grew up as a conservative Christian and always been in the medical arena. I'm a physician and practicing 30 years in dermatology, and the paranormal just had no place. I thought people probably really believed they had experiences, but they just misinterpreted things. I had a huge list of reasons ghosts weren't real. Our oldest daughter thought our house in Alabama was haunted, and back then I didn't believe in any of this, and I thought, well, I'll pull a dad move, and I'm going to find the most haunted place in America, take her there, we'll go there for a weekend, nothing will happen, I'll shut her up, and we'll get back to our normal world. So we went to the Crescent Hotel in May of 2012, and that weekend changed my life. We had crazy things happen that just helped me realize I don't know anything about reality. Everything I thought I knew, I'm wrong on, so we started investigating, going to lots of neat places, but the skeptical side of me always worried if they were enhancing the haunt. So I thought if I could ever find a place that was haunted, that could be my paranormal lab.
I didn't really have any interest in this until Steve wanted to buy a haunted house. So he started searching locations and said, there's this place I found online, it's in Missouri, we could take a road trip, and I was like, okay, that's fine. And so I believe it was on the way here when he told me it was also for sale. So then I really understood what he wanted to do.
So in 2018, came across the haunted castle house in Brumley, Missouri. We had never heard of Brumley, never heard of this. We drove up here, spent the 9.5 hours talking about how crazy it would be to buy a house from people we don't know in a town we've never heard of that might be haunted. As cheesy as it sounds, when we pulled in, we just thought, oh wow, we love this place.
It was not at all what I expected. I expected like kind of a creepy haunted house, and it was just very, charming to me.
So we decided we would just take a chance. We bought it and figured we'd probably have it a year. We didn't really expect anything much to happen. I thought I'll sell it and maybe be a little wiser after that. This is the haunted castle house in Brumley, Missouri. This house has been around for 150 years roughly, and it's been owned by a lot of interesting people, including 3 different physicians. It's a fascinating location. It's been a lot of exciting times, sad times, and we have a lot of paranormal activity, enough to keep us making our trip from Alabama 9 hours each way, multiple times each year. It's a place we'll sit in here and do sensory deprivation things, Estes technique, different stuff. So not long after I cleared it out, I opened it up just like this, and back in the back, there was a little blonde-haired boy. Looked like he's probably about 4 years old. He's sitting cross-legged, looked straight at me. I look at him, and he doesn't look like he's scared or hiding or anything. And we just stared at each other for a minute, and then he disappears. So I go on in there, and I sit down and have all the lights off, and I'm just let my mind kind of think and clear. And the word Yahtzee popped in my mind. So I hadn't thought about Yahtzee in decades. So I got a Yahtzee can, and the dice and all are in there. Nothing's moved, but I don't know if the little boy maybe played games in there, if that was one he played, or if I just randomly thought that at this time. I've since seen that little boy at the top of the stairs, and we've had, it's either 4 or 5 teams that have seen what they described the exact same way, little blonde-haired boy. We just knew it was being run as a haunted bed and breakfast. The history that came from them was wonderful, but it was too good to be true because it had a lot of errors in it. And, piecing history together is so hard, and I don't fault anybody for that. But that's something that, we've been really, really serious about, is trying to get all the history as accurate as possible. Once I realized the history we had been told wasn't true, I wondered about some of the paranormal things they had told us. Some of them we've experienced, and some of them haven't.
Well, the first night we owned the house, there was one of the scary experiences that we had.
We'd worked half a day, drove into December, got up here around midnight. We bring our stuff in, set things down. I get into bed towards this side. I fall asleep really quick. Judy is equally exhausted, but she's in a new home in a new town. It may be haunted. There's a door that looks like it's from The Shining right here. She has the night light on, and after probably 10 minutes or so, I'm asleep, she's awake. This is what we both heard. To me, that's not a ghost. That's somebody that's broken into my house. I slide my 357 out from under the mattress. I come check this, there's nothing. Get out, check the hall, check all the rooms upstairs, nothing. Get downstairs and realize the only door into the house is still deadbolt locked. The security system's still on. And poor sweet Judy is alone by herself in the room where the knocking was. And so I come up and I'm shaking. I don't get scared much, but it got me that night. After all this occurred, of course, my world paradigm is just shot. Being a conservative Christian all my life, being in the medical arena my whole life, these things didn't fit. That's kind of what's driven me on this quest, is trying to find a way to get some harmony between my faith, my science, and my personal experiences. And I really, as I've dug into it, think there's a whole lot more compatibility with those than meets the eye.
Steve is much more open and accepting of it. To me, it was much harder to mesh everything together. I had a lot more questions. I was raised conservative Christian as well, and so we believed in angels and demons, but we didn't really believe in anything past that. So ghosts were not a thing, and so when all this happened, it was really hard to kind of figure out, how does this fit? We did a lot of deep diving, a lot of studying, a lot of talking with other people, our pastor, and it was interesting. Right after we decided to buy this, our pastor actually did like a 9-week series on spiritual warfare. So I thought the timing on that was really, really interesting.
I think when you really dig down and peel back, whether it's my Christian faith or somebody else's faith, clearly it allows for the spiritual dimension, and there's lots of references in there that I think support, the afterlife and our ability to interact with it at times. And in the medical world, just in my profession, dermatology, it wasn't that long ago we treated people with arsenic for psoriasis. So the medical arena and all of science is changing forever. There's theories that were held very firmly 100 years ago that we laugh at now. After a couple hours, I fell back asleep, and then around 4 in the morning, I got woken up with my pillow being pushed in several inches, and by my right ear, there was a man's voice go, Not much else happened that weekend. Get back home, and I told Judy, I got to go back by myself. I'm very competitive. The house is 1, I'm 0. I'm not going to be scared of my house. So I come back up here, try to reproduce things the exact same, and you really would have felt like you're at your grandmother's house. I didn't hear a board squeak, never got an uneasy feeling. When my first experience happened, I was pretty cautious about sharing things because being in the medical profession, that's kind of taboo to talk about these things, especially for physicians. I think other areas, nurses, particularly hospice nurses, they seem to talk about it and be more comfortable. But I think, with doctors, we're not expected to buy into this nonsense. We're supposed to be more serious and factual and algorithmic. I slowly started sharing things with family and then friends, and I was really encouraged because almost every single person I talked to said, well, now that you've told me what happened to you, let me share my experience. And regardless of what background we're from, a lot of people are really guarded about sharing anything. And I noticed people were really relieved to tell them. It was just like a catharsis for them to be able to share it and not be laughed at, for it to be accepted. This is where I have the most activity. I sleep up here most nights. I got woken up twice hearing a little girl giggling. So the first night I'm in this bed asleep, I hear a little girl humming and singing and giggling. And so I think I probably just dreamt it because as soon as I moved, it was gone. A couple of nights later, the same thing. I hear her humming, singing, making little noises. And I just lay there for about 10 seconds. And I tried real slowly to turn. But the second, my eyes crossed about this part right here, then it's gone. It just stopped. That banged on the door. This house is haunted. Okay, so let's see where this goes. We try to keep, logs of things that happen to us so we can look for patterns to see if certain times of the year or phases of the moon or solar flares or anything may trigger activity. And we've looked at environmentally what would be causes for haunting here. And we know the house is built out of concrete that was made from limestone harvested on the property. There's huge limestone shelves underneath us. The Ozark Aquifers underneath us. We've got wet weather springs that run underneath us. We've had 3 different doctors out here. 2 of them were the coroners as well. So they would have treated patients here. Patients would have passed here. I think those emotional spikes either way, may possibly imprint or leave something behind here.
During the day, I'm pretty comfortable in the house. At nighttime, I get a little more cautious, a little scared. There's something about upstairs. I just don't like to go up there by myself at night. I've had probably 3 or 4 things that have really kind of frightened me. One day, Steve was outside in the graveyard, and it was really hot during the summertime. So I thought, well, he may be thirsty. I need to take him some water. So I started to go out the front door, but I stopped and looked in the mirror next to the front door. And I thought I saw something move behind me into the parlor. And I turned around and looked, and I didn't see anything. So I thought, oh, it was probably just the light coming through the window, played a trick on my eyes or something. It didn't scare me. So I go out, I give him the water. We talk for a few minutes, and then he drinks it while we're talking, and he asks for another water. So I come back in, and I was just focused, going to go to the kitchen to get the water. Wasn't thinking ghosts, wasn't thinking anything scary. I was walking through, and as I got to the dining room, it just felt heavier. When I walked in here, like, this room normally feels cooler, but for some reason it felt like really thick and hard to breathe. There's an air conditioner in there, and I looked, and it was running, and I was like, why does it feel weird? I was trying to analyze everything. So I kind of slowed down and was like looking around. And then right in front of me, it sounds crazy, and I still don't quite know how to process it. That's where it just looks like an oval, just like almost like a mirror just opened up, like, or a window, I guess, opened up, and there was an older lady who was black and white, not color. It looked like she was trying to scare me, but it was just an oval that opened, and she went like this. And she didn't say anything, but it looked like, you know, how you would like say boo to somebody. Totally freaked me out. Didn't know how to explain that. So I just ran outside and got Steve, and was like, I just saw an old lady in the dining room. I don't know what's happening. So he came in and set up some equipment, and nothing else happened. He didn't get anything, no EVPs, no weird feelings or anything. I guess it was just meant for me to see. And you can tell the original house is all the really thick concrete. And then they added on this little room right here on the side. We're not sure what year, maybe the 1980s. But it's just one big room. And so that's where we have our bedroom. And so that's where I sleep. It just has a different feeling there than the rest of the house. So Steve calls it my ghost-free zone. At night before I go to sleep, I just say, if anybody's in here, you need to go back to the main house, and please just leave me alone in here. So that's kind of my safe zone.
I think they're spiritual beings that I would classify as angels and demons. I think there's good and bad. I think that, the spirits we might interact with on our investigations may be some or just disembodied people, some maybe spiritual creatures, for lack of a better word. I've been exposed to concepts like, the elementals and different nature spirits that aren't part of the Judeo-Christian perspectives per se. But as you look at it, there's some similarities with a lot of those things. The more I get into it, the more questions I definitely have, and the more open I am to, what people think. Because we get people that have really neat experiences, and they're not trying to sell me anything. They're not trying to convince me. They're just telling me what's happened to them. And I have to take those things serious. And, I might not be able to fully understand it or pigeonhole it into my nice, neat category, but it just adds tiny little bits to the puzzle. I firmly believe my lack of understanding has nothing to do with what's true and what's not anymore. If I'm not bright enough to figure it out, that doesn't mean a whole lot. And if I believe something fiercely, that doesn't mean it's true. So it's opened my eyes, it's opened my heart. It's definitely strengthened my faith. I've always, believed, strongly in my Christian faith, but seeing this and having evidence, I think that the life does continue on, even if it's not maybe exactly the way I had it pictured. I think it really is incredibly encouraging and incredibly uplifting. So, yeah, it fascinates me. It hasn't been scary or dangerous or traumatic in any way, really. It's just been fascinating, and more questions, more questions, more questions.